नमस्ते, हमेशा खुश रहो बिटिया। आई एम जीवन डॉक्टर मीनाक्षी, असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर इन डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ शलाक्य तंत्र, फैकल्टी ऑफ आयुर्वेदिc science, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. Today in this session we will discuss the rest part of the flectanular keratoconjunctivitis, which is a type of the allergic conjunctivitis. So in the previous session we have discussed the etiology of flectanular keratoconjunctivitis, the predisposing factors, we have discussed the pathology, we have discussed the clinical picture, and now we will discuss the flectanular keratitis. The corneal involvement may occur secondarily from extension of conjunctival flecton or rarely as a primary disease. It may present in two forms: the ulcerative flectanular keratitis or diffuse infiltrative keratitis. So the first form is the ulcerative flectanular keratitis, which may occur in the following three forms: the sacrophilous ulcer and the fascicular ulcer, and third is the miliary ulcer. The sacrophilous ulcer is a shallow marginal ulcer formed due to breakdown of small limbal flectin. It differs from the cattle ulcer in that there is no clear space between the ulcer and the limbus, and its long axis is frequently perpendicular to limbus. Such an ulcer usually clears up without leaving any opacity. Second is the fascicular ulcer, which has a prominent parallel leach of blood vessels. This ulcer usually remains superficial but leaves behind a band-shaped superficial opacity after healing. And third type of this is an image of the fascicular ulcer leaving the band-shaped opacity after healing. Then third type of ulcer is the miliary ulcer. In this form, multiple small ulcers are scattered over a portion of or whole of the cornea. And then the second form of flectanular keratitis is the diffuse infiltrative flectanular keratitis, which may appear in the form of central infiltration of cornea with characteristic rich vascularization from the periphery all around the limbus. It may be superficial or deep. The clinical course is usually self-limiting and flectin disappears in 8 to 10 days, leaving no trace. However, recurrences are very common. Then the differential diagnosis of the flectanular keratoconjunctivitis. The flectanular conjunctivitis needs to be differentiated from the episcleritis, scleritis, and conjunctival foreign body granuloma. The presence of one or more whitish raised nodules on the bulbar conjunctiva near the limbus with hyperemia, usually the surrounding conjunctiva in a child living in a bad hygienic condition, are the diagnostic feature of the flectanular conjunctivitis. Then the management of the flectanular keratoconjunctivitis. It includes the treatment of flectanular conjunctivitis by local therapy, investigations, and specific therapy aimed at eliminating the causative allergen and general measures to improve the health of the child. The first is the local therapy. We should give the topical steroids in the form of eye drops or ointment like dexamethasone or betamethasone produce dramatic effect in flectanular keratoconjunctivitis. Then antibiotic drops and ointment should be added to take care of the associated secondary infection like mucopollulant conjunctivitis. Then atropine 1% eye ointment should be applied once daily when cornea is involved. The second type of management is a specific therapy or the systemic therapy. Attempts must be made to search and eradicate the following causative conditions like tuberculosis infection should be excluded by X-ray chest and Mantoux test, TLC, DLC, and ESR. In case a tubercular focus is discovered, anti-tubercular treatment should be started to combat the infection. Then the septic focus in the form of tonsillitis, adenoiditis, or carry seeds when present should be adequately treated by systemic antibiotics and necessary surgical measures. The parasitic infestation should be ruled out by repeated stool examination and when discovered should be adequately treated for complete eradication. The general measures aimed to improve the health of the child are equally important. Attempts should be made to provide health protein diet supplemented with vitamin A, C and D. Next type of allergic conjunctivitis is the contact dermoconjunctivitis. It is an allergic disorder involving conjunctiva and the skin of lids along with surrounding area of face. The etiology of contact dermoconjunctivitis it is in fact a delayed hypersensitivity type 4 response to prolonged contact with chemicals and drugs. A few common topical ophthalmic medications known to produce the contact dermoconjunctivitis are atropine, penicillin, neomycin, toframycin, and gentamicin. Then the clinical picture of contact dermoconjunctivitis, the cutaneous involvement in the form of weeping eczematous reaction involving all areas with which medication comes in contact. Conjunctival response is in the form of hyperemia with a generalized papillary response affecting the lower fornix and lower palpebral conjunctiva more than the upper. Then the conjunctival response in the form of hyperemia with the cornea may show the punctate epithelial keratitis and erosions. Then the diagnosis of the contact dermoconjunctivitis. It is made from typical clinical picture. The conjunctival cytology shows a lymphocytic response with masses of eosinophils. Then skin test to the causative allergen is positive in most of the cases. Then the treatment of the contact dermoconjunctivitis. A treatment consists of the discontinuation of the positive medication and topical steroid eye drops to relieve symptoms and application of steroid ointment on the involved skin. Thank you so much. In the next session, we will discuss the cicatricial conjunctivitis. So, the topic of allergic conjunctivitis completes here. Thank you so much. This session is powered by digital version 2.0 Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I hope you are satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention in the comments box. I will resolve it. Thank you so much. Meibomian gland. These are also known as the tarsal glands. As we have already discussed, they are the parallel rows of glands present in the substance of the tarsal plate. And these are present in the stroma of the tarsal plate and are arranged vertically in the parallel rows we studied. They are about 30 to 40 in the upper lid and about 20 to 30 in the upper lid. So their number varies in the upper and lower lid. They are comparatively more in number in the upper eyelid. They are 30 to 40 in the upper eyelid, whereas a little bit lesser in number, 20 to 30 in the lower eyelid. They are the modified sebaceous glands. They are talking about the meibomian gland. They are the modified sebaceous glands and their ducts open at the lid margin. Okay, the ducts open at the lid margin and their secretion constitutes the oily layer of tear film. So tear film has the three layers. One layer is the oily layer and its composition, and this oily layer is formed by the secretion of the meibomian gland. Then the second gland of eyelid is the glands of Zeiss. They are also the sebaceous glands, but their site of opening is different. They open into the follicles of eyelashes, as the meibomian gland open into the lid margin, and this opens into the follicles of the eyelashes. Then there is an image which is showing at the upper side you can see the lacrimal gland, and at the superior fornix there are glands of Crowe's, and then there are glands of Wolfram below the superior fornix, and glands of Mens, then meibomian gland at the tarsal plate, the glands of Zeiss, which open into the root of the hair follicle, glands of Moll, which is near the hair follicle, and then glands of Crowe's at the lower fornix. Next gland is the glands of Mole. These are the modified sweat glands. Earlier, the meibomian gland and the gland of Zeiss were the modified sebaceous glands, whereas the glands of Moll is the modified sweat glands situated near the hair follicle. The gland of Zeiss open into the root of the hair follicle, where the gland of Zeiss is situated near the hair follicle, and they open into the hair follicles or into the ducts of Zeiss gland. So they can open into the duct of Zeiss gland or into the hair follicles, and they do not open directly into the skin surface as elsewhere. Okay, they won't open into the skin surface directly, they will open into the hair follicle or the Zeiss gland duct. So next is the accessory lacrimal glands of Wolfram. These are present near the upper border of the tarsal plate. These glands of Wolfram are present as the, here you can see the yellow color glands. These are the glands of Wolfram which are present at the upper borders of the tarsal plate. Then comes the blood supply of the eyelids. Which arteries supply the eyelids? The arteries of the lids means the medial and lateral palpebral. They form the marginal arterial arcades which lie in the submuscular plane in front of the tarsal plate. Okay, and we studied that in the submuscular areolar tissue, we anesthetize this layer because the veins and nerves and our veins, our blood vessels are present in this layer. So they lie in the submuscular plane in front of the tarsal plate, 2 millimeter away from the lid margin in each lid. And in the upper lid, another arcade, which is called the superior arterial arcade, is formed, which lies near the upper border of the tarsal plate. The branches go forward and backward from these arches to supply various structures. Then next are the veins. The veins of the eyelids, they are arranged in the two plexus, a post-tarsal and a pre-tarsal plexus. A post-tarsal plexus drains into the ophthalmic veins, and a pre-tarsal plexus opens into the subcutaneous veins. Okay, next is the lymphatics. These are also arranged in two sets, the pre-tarsal and post-tarsal. Those from the lateral half of the lids drain into the preauricular lymph nodes, and those from the medial half of the eyelids drain into the submandibular lymph nodes. Then the nerves of lids. The motor nerves are facial. The facial nerve, we have already studied, facial nerve supplies the orbicularis oculi muscle. Then there is a oculomotor nerve which supplies the LPS muscle, levator palpebrae superioris. And there is sympathetic fibers which supply the Mueller's muscle. These are the motor nerves. Then the sensory nerve supply, it is derived from the branches of the trigeminal nerve, which is the fifth cranial nerve. So here completes the anatomy of the eyelid. We have already discussed the layers of eyelids, then the glands of eyelids, the blood supply, nerve supply, lymphatics, all these things have been discussed here. In next session, we will discuss the diseases of the eyelid. So Thank you so much. This session is powered by Digital Version 2.0, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I hope you're satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention in the comment box. I will resolve it. Thank you so much.